Welcome to the program today. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin in Chad, where the authorities have handed over former Central African Republic militia leader to the International Criminal Court, ICC. Maxine Geoffrey Eli Mokom was the leader of the anti-Balaka militia and is suspected of crimes against humanity and war crimes committed in 2013 and 2014. His arrest warrant was, however, issued in 2018. The ICC says the 43-year-old is suspected of being responsible for extermination, forcible transfer of population, torture, mutilation, and enlistment of child soldiers, among other crimes. According to a statement, the Hague-based court says Mr. Mokom appearance before a pre-trial chamber will take place in due course. Somalia has missed the deadline to conclude long-delayed parliamentary elections as political disagreements continue in the country. The federal government had set a deadline for March 15th to complete the polls, but more than 50 seats in the legislature are yet to be filled. This could in turn delay further the election of a new president who is normally selected indirectly by members of parliament. Somalia has already missed several deadlines to conclude voting for the lower house of parliament since February last year. On Sunday, a delegation of some of Somalia's international partners was in Puntland, where they held meetings with the president of Puntland State, Said Abdullahi Deni, to discuss the support needed to conclude the ongoing electoral process on time. Secretary General's Deputy Special Representatives for Somalia, Anita Kiki, says issues of local and national concern was discussed with a particular focus on the current elections.
We discussed issues of local and national concern with a particular focus on the current elections. We heard from the president about the current drought and his concerns and how we need to work together moving forward. We spoke about the urgency of moving to the next stage of elections and the actions required to do so. We underlined the fundamental importance of inclusivity of the process. We applauded the vibrant advocacy efforts in Puntland towards achieving the minimum quota of 30% women's representation in parliament.
In the meantime, the country is appealing for international help to feed about 6.9 million people facing severe food and water shortages. In a statement, the Somali Prime Minister Mohamed Hussein Roble said the dire situation had already forced 500,000 Somalis to flee their homes in search of food and water. He says many could die unless they get urgent assistance. He also adds that the country is experiencing its worst drought since 2011. His appeal comes hours after the state TV reported that 3 people had died from extreme hunger in southwestern Somalia, where a militant blockade has worsened conditions for thousands of people. Al-Shabaab militants are also said to have taken advantage of the humanitarian situation to distribute food and water in regions under its control in the southwest. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned that Russia's war against Ukraine could lead to what he calls a hurricane of hunger and food insecurity worldwide. He says many African and poorer countries who relied heavily on Russian and Ukrainian wheat production are now endangered by the conflict. Well, these countries include Burkina Faso, Somalia, and Yemen, who are already struggling to feed their populations. Mr. Guterres also called for an immediate ceasefire to avoid a breakdown of the world food systems, announcing a $40 million package to help millions of Ukrainians facing hunger and dwindling supplies of water and medicine. Well, earlier this morning on our special coverage of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, we spoke to Jimmy Ogbobine, is the head of Augusto Consulting, who highlighted the impact of Russia's sanctions on Nigeria's import of wheat and also spoke about the surging prices that could follow.
What kinds of industries first can be affected? You've actually you've actually dimensioned it. So first, the flour milling industry, and then that entire value chain within that wheat space: flour milling, bakery, confectionaries. Those three major industries, and maybe drug manufacturing, whatever industry, breweries that may depend on additives from all of that wheat space. So Nigeria imports about a fifth of its wheat supply from Russia. Between Ukraine and Russia, you have about a third in production of global wheat. So what this means is that, and secondly, bread is one of the biggest staples in Nigeria. Remember, all of our local staples all have some level of seasonality. Yam, plantain, and even all of the maize meals, they typically have seasonality. The major staple that doesn't suffer this seasonality effect, either upside or downside of seasonality, is bread. So bread is one of Nigeria's most important staples, even above rice, right? And as fate would have it, yes, there have been conversations, there have been initiatives and investments into increasing wheat production, but it hasn't just succeeded. So right now, we're still quite dependent on wheat for our local bread supplies, our local bread production, cakes, confectionaries, biscuits. Biscuits is another very reliable snack, especially for kids in Nigeria. So it's until you speak with a biscuit manufacturer before you realize and appreciate how much biscuit is a supporting meal, as a snack for kids.
All Sudanese people have been protesting against the hike in the price of bread, and they've been met with force as the security forces fired tear gas at people protesting against sharp rises in the cost of bread and fuel. Marches have been held across the country. Demonstrators said live bullets were used against them in the southeastern city of Damazin. On Sunday, the price of bread increased by more than 40%. The cost of fuel is also set to be soaring. The United Nations says a third of Sudan's population is already reliant on aid, and the situation is deteriorating, especially since last year's coup, which led to the suspension of crucial donor funds. Consumer and producer prices in Ghana are at a 5-year high after 8 months of rapid inflation. Bread prices, standardized by the National Bakers Union, have yet to catch up, and bakers are struggling to make ends meet. After 25 years of business, the Bethel Brothers Bakery in central Accra may soon close its doors for good.
Radiated from the wood-fired oven of the Bethel Brothers Bakery in Ghana's capital, Accra, as a dozen men hastily shaped dough into hundreds of rolls that will spread through the city the following morning. The bakery, founded nearly 25 years ago by childhood friends Raphael Bokiti and David Eshin, churns out hundreds of loaves each day for households, restaurants and street traders, but spiraling inflation could soon shut its doors.
Really, the whole thing started from last year, June coming. Every month they will increase flour, not just flour, sugar, margarine, all things that we need to produce bread have been increased, some on monthly or weekly basis, and it's really affecting the bakery industry. Whenever you are trying to stand, then an increment will come, then you need to go back again.
Supply chain bottlenecks caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, a depreciating national currency, and other global market factors have sent inflation spiraling over the past 9 months to its highest levels since 2016, with consumer price inflation hitting 15.7% in February.
I have a whole lot of professionals who They just came here working, getting their weekly wages or salary, and they help them to be able to upgrade themselves in school. I have a lot. I have about 6 or 7 here that they are here working while they are going to school. They are here working whilst they are going to school, and this place have helped them, and they will be able to improve upon their life. So if all of a sudden this inflation or what is going on should make us to fold, then you should know what it has cost.
According to data from the Observatory of Economic Complexity, cereals have seen some of the steepest price rises, and that was before the Russian invasion of Ukraine last month, which further stretched global commodity markets, particularly wheat. Ghana imports nearly a quarter of its wheat from Russia. Many have had to reduce portion size or illegally hike prices to stay afloat. Bethel Brothers is laden with debt and has been forced to lay off staff.
We have put in so much into it. We have sacrificed. We have been through a lot. So if this should bring it to an end, then spending your whole life for the past 25 years working, and then just a short month or a year, something would then hit you to be out of business, or your business is not doing well. It's very painful.
David Ashen still sets out before dawn each morning to deliver fresh bread to faithful customers from a rickety delivery van held together with pins and wire.
When they increase the products, the material that you use to bake, you also have to decrease the size of the bread. And the moment you decrease it or you try to increase it, then it becomes a problem. It becomes something that, okay, if you have increased it, I'm not going to take it.
But these days it can barely afford fuel and has been running out between stops. The 45-year-old doctor says he's in dire need of sleep, another luxury David says he cannot afford.
Especially if you are doing genuine business, something you are working. At least there should be something that should keep you in business, should keep you working, should keep you going. If they talk of inflation, and then your business is cropping, I'm a Ghanaian. I'm a born and bred Ghanaian. I've never traveled anywhere before. This is my country. And if I cannot make it in my own country, then where am I going to make it?
The inflation has been disastrous for bakeries, whose sales prices are standardized by the National Bakers Association and have not risen since August.
Digital and money app money lenders in Kenya have been given until the end of September to either apply for an operating license or cease operations. Or the Central Bank of Kenya Governor Peter Njoroge says regulations governing the lenders will be gazetted later this month, meaning all the apps will be regulated by the government. They've often been accused of predatory behavior, high interest rates, and customer harassment for those who fail to pay the loans on time. The government has since early 2020 blocked digital lenders from listing defaulters with credit reference bureaus, saying the companies had abused the systems. The lenders are popular in Kenya because of their fast loan processing. Kenyans will from Tuesday pay more for fuel as the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues to affect the price of crude oil and refined products. The East African country's petroleum regulator says the price of petrol and diesel will increase by 5 Kenyan shillings. However, the fuel prices regulator says the price of kerosene, which is used in many poor Kenyan households to cook, remains unchanged. Kenya's petroleum subsidy program has kept fuel prices unchanged for 4 months in a row. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Brent crude oil hit a 14-year high. The price of essential commodities is now expected to go up in the East African country. Ugandan police have arrested a suspected prominent recruiter and coordinator of the Allied Democratic Forces rebel group. Police spokesperson Fred Enanga said Abdallah Kamanda Musa, alias Mogo, was arrested in central Uganda while allegedly plotting attacks against security agencies and prominent individuals in Uganda. The security agency suspects that he was part of the group that coordinated attacks at the Central Police Station in Kampala in November last year that killed several people. The attacks prompted the Ugandan army to cross the border into Democratic Republic of Congo to fight Islamic State IS-linked militants. All right, I understand Abby, again, a Kenyan journalist, is back. Hello, Abby. I was asking you to, break it down for us. Help us understand how, the increase by 5 shillings, the increase on fuel, will, have an impact.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. And as we speak right now, I'm on the Kenyan roads, and clearly there isn't much traffic. A clear indication of the impact the rise in fuel prices has had in the country. Ordinarily, most of the motorists have had to consider using public transport in order to get themselves to work, whereas we're also seeing a huge number of them turning to motorbikes as well as cycling to work. Clearly, the high prices have hit many households hard, and this is going to be affected in the next coming days.
So how are Kenyans, reacting to this development?
Well, a cross-section of Kenyans have expressed their disaffection to the new pump prices. Majority of them are saying that the government should step in further to cushion them, because they are claiming that the cost of living has dramatically gone up, even when the pandemic continues to ravage most of the households. Majority of them are saying that the high prices will affect their household budgets in terms of what they are able to buy, how they can plan their weekdays, as well spend on just their normal budget. Most of the people are not used.
We do apologize for that poor audio connection. Let's move on to Mali now. Human Rights Watch, the rights organization, says there's been a surge in the killing of civilians in Mali by soldiers and jihadists. That's according to the Human Rights Watch, who says at least 107 civilians, including traders, village chiefs and children, had been killed in central and southwestern Mali since December last year. Soldiers have been blamed for at least 71 civilian deaths over the period, while jihadists were linked to 36 of the deaths. HRW calls it a dramatic spike and is calling for investigations. Mali's army has in the past been accused of human rights abuses, but they've denied the allegations. Foreign troops are in the process of exiting the country that is currently run by a military junta that ousted the president in 2020. Mali's conflict between the army, ethnic militants and jihadists has been going on for a decade. To health matters now. Nigeria is on red alert to halt any outbreak of the wild polio in the country following reports of a detection of wild polio virus in Malawi last month. Speaking at the 38th Expert Review Committee meeting on polio and routine immunization in Abuja, the executive director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shaib, laments the circulating vaccine-derived poliovirus type 2 was also a major concern during the last committee meeting. According to the agency, the type 2 vaccine-derived poliovirus has been detected in 29 states. He explains that the agency has ramped up efforts since the previous documents used to fight polio, which resulted in Nigeria attaining a polio-free status declared by the World Health Organization in 2020.
for routine immunization, despite the pandemic, we've seen a steady improvement in routine immunization coverage from 33% in 2017 to 56% in 2022. Although we recognize that as of 2019, before the pandemic, we had actually reached the Gideon heights of 71% within 2 years. The circulating variant poliovirus outbreak has been a major concern since the last ERC. And today, the outbreak has now increased beyond what we saw in 2019. It is now one of the greatest challenges that we face in the polio program. Furthermore, the recent reports of the white polio virus type 1 in Malawi in February and WPV type 3 report in Israel in March brings it very close home our realization that it is not over until it is over. Until we achieve global eradication of polio, then we cannot rest on our oars.
The UN Secretary General says that while women and girls face the greatest threats and deepest harm, they are also taking action to confront the climate and environmental crisis in the world. But in spite of this, he says they continue to be largely excluded from the rooms where decisions are taken. Mr. Guterres spoke at the opening of the 66th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, which this year focuses on achieving gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls.
We are still living with the results of millennia of patriarchy that excludes women and prevents their voices from being heard. We cannot realize any of our goals without the contributions of all. And this is why everyone, including men and boys, should be working for women's rights and gender equality. Meanwhile, the United Nations is working every day to support the participation and leadership of women at every stage of building and maintaining peace. We have reached, more than 1 year ago, gender parity at the level of the 190 senior leaders of the United Nations and the Secretary Generals and Assistant Secretary Generals, full gender parity. And we have full gender parity in the leadership of country teams, the resident coordinators. And this is essential to make the UN more able to represent all the people in the world. This is not only a matter of justice. Women's equal leadership and participation are vital to create peaceful, resilient communities and societies.
In Senegal, Hitched is the second ride-hailing app to be launched in the country after Yango, which is owned by a tech giant Yandex. Both tech companies are testing a largely untapped market for ride-hailing services in Francophone West Africa.
Margaret Mbaye had always taken taxis to a banking job in Senegal's capital, Dakar, but haggling over prices and inhaling fumes through the open windows every day wore her down. She was happy to leave all that behind when French ride-hailing app Hitch launched in January. The ride costs a little more, but she considers it a small price to pay for the peace of mind.
Parce qu'on est une génération 3.0, on est tout le temps sur le smartphone.
We're 3.0 generation. We're on the smartphone all the time. And the ability to anticipate taxi orders, because you can't find a taxi all the time as soon as you get off. I prefer to wait quietly at home or at the office, and as soon as it's there, I get out and there's no waiting time.
Hitch was the second company to launch a ride-hailing app in Senegal in recent months after Yango, which is owned by Russian tech giant Yandex. Both are testing a largely untapped market for ride-hailing services in Francophone West Africa, where the industry has been slower to take hold than in Anglophone countries like Nigeria and Ghana that have more vibrant startup cultures.
Africa is a very young continent where connectivity is very high. Everyone has a smartphone. Everything that is done in the country, in Africa, is done with a phone. Between sending money to a relative who is in another city or talking via WhatsApp, Facebook, you can see that people are connected 24 hours a day. Hitch is coming into the digital world to modernize transport.
Hitch said about 3,000 people have downloaded the application so far in Senegal.
I want to earn money. I think it's the best way to make money. It puts us in touch with the customer. It's safe and easy.
And that's it on the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.